The coffee comment came during dessert at Maggiano's. Mom had just blown out 60 candles while the entire family sang off-key. I sat at the far end of the table, the spot they always gave me, next to the kitchen doors where servers kept bumping my chair. "Emma, you want some of this tiramisu?" Mom asked, sliding the dessert menu toward me. Before I could answer, my brother Derek leaned back in his chair, that familiar smirk already forming. Does she even have money for coffee? I mean, how does someone survive on a warehouse salary? The table went quiet for exactly 2 seconds before the laughter started. "Derek, stop," Mom said, but she was smiling. She was always smiling when Derek made his jokes. "I'm serious though," Derek continued, warming to his audience. "Emma, what do you make? Like 30,000 a year? Before taxes?" He turned to his wife, Jessica. "Babe, isn't that what we spend on your car payment?" Jessica giggled into her wine glass. "And insurance." I took a sip of water. "Something like that." "See, this is what I'm talking about," Derek said, addressing the whole table now. "No ambition. No drive. I was making 6 figures by 25. Built a whole tech company from nothing. Meanwhile, Emma's still scanning boxes in a warehouse at 32. Dad nodded slowly. "Your brother has a point, Emma. When are you going to do something with your life?" "I'm doing fine," I said quietly. "Fine." Derek laughed. "Fine is what you say when you've given up. I mean, look at this place." He gestured around the restaurant. "Mom's birthday dinner and you didn't even offer to help pay. You know why? Because you can't even afford coffee here. Their espresso is $8. My younger sister Sarah chimed in. "It is pretty expensive here, Emma. Maybe you should have suggested somewhere more budget-friendly." "I didn't pick the restaurant," I said. "Because you never contribute to family decisions," Derek said. "Why would we ask someone who can't afford to participate?" Uncle Richard, Dad's brother, leaned forward. "You know, Emma, it's not too late to go back to school. Get a real career. Derek could probably give you some business advice." "I appreciate that," I said, keeping my voice level. Derek was on a roll now. He loved having an audience. "Seriously though, Emma, how do you survive? Rent, utilities, groceries, gas. It all adds up. You must be living paycheck to paycheck. That's no way to live." "I manage," I said. "Barely, I bet." Derek signaled the waiter. "Another bottle of the Camus, please. The 2019. He turned back to me. "That's a $400 bottle, by the way. Just so you know what success tastes like." Jessica touched his arm. "Derek, maybe ease up a little?" "What?" "I'm trying to motivate her. Someone needs to." He looked at me again. "Emma, you're 32. Most people your age are buying houses, starting families, building wealth. You're just existing." Mom cut in. "Emma's always been the practical one. Not everyone needs to be a CEO, Derek." "Practical?" Derek laughed. "Mom, there's practical and there's settling. Emma settled. Hard." I nodded slowly. "You're probably right." That seemed to satisfy him. He raised his wine glass. "Here's to Mom. 60 years young. And here's to hoping Emma figures things out before she turns 60. Everyone clinked glasses. I lifted my water. The rest of dinner continued with Derek holding court about his tech startup, Next Tech Solutions. They'd just closed Series B funding. $15 million. He'd been talking about it nonstop for 3 months. Every family gathering, every phone call, every text message somehow circled back to his incredible success. "We're projecting $50 million in revenue next year," Derek said over coffee, real coffee, which he made a point of offering to everyone except me. "The investors are thrilled. We might go for Series C in 18 months. Dad beamed with pride. "That's my boy." "Derek's always been special," Mom agreed. "Even as a kid, we knew he'd do something amazing." I stayed quiet, checking my phone under the table. A message from my investment manager, Richard Chin. "Need to discuss the Next Tech position. Call me Monday morning." I'd been expecting this. Derek started Next Tech Solutions 4 years ago with 2 college friends. Big dreams, minimal capital, maximum arrogance. They developed some cloud-based software solution that I never fully understood because Derek never bothered explaining it to me beyond, "It's revolutionary, but you wouldn't get it." What Derek didn't know, what nobody in my family knew, was that I'd been there from the beginning. Not as his supportive sister. As his angel investor. When Derek first pitched his idea to venture capital firms, he got rejected. Repeatedly. His product was too niche, his team too inexperienced, his projections too optimistic. After 6 months of rejections, he was broke and desperate. That's when I approached him through my investment firm, Sterling Ventures. I didn't use my real name. The firm handled everything through shell companies and legal proxies. On paper, Derek's angel investor was SV Capital Holdings. In reality, it was me. I'd put in $800,000 of seed funding in exchange for 60% equity. Derek thought he'd found some Silicon Valley investor who believed in his vision. He had no idea his embarrassing warehouse worker sister had just become his majority shareholder. Over the next 4 years, I'd invested another $3.9 million through various funding rounds, always maintaining my 60% stake. When Derek talked about the investors, he meant me. When he celebrated closing Series B, most of that money came from funds I'd redirected through venture partnerships. Total investment, $4.7 million. Current valuation after Series B, approximately $78 million. My stake, $46.8 million on paper. The warehouse job, that was real technically. I worked there part-time mostly for the health insurance and to maintain my cover. My real income came from a diversified investment portfolio I'd been building since my early 20s, starting with a small inheritance from my grandmother that I'd turned into 8 figures through careful investing, real estate, and strategic venture capital plays. I lived below my means intentionally. Small apartment, old car, simple clothes. It kept my family from asking questions. It also kept them from asking for money. But Derek's behavior at dinner had crossed a line. The public humiliation, the constant belittling, the way he'd convinced our entire family that I was a failure. It had gone too far. Monday morning I called Richard Chin. "Emma, good morning," Richard said. "I've been reviewing the next tech position." "I want out," I said. "All of it." Silence on the other end. "Then, you're sure? The company's doing well. Series C could triple the valuation." "I'm sure. Start the divestment process immediately. This will trigger significant consequences for the company," Richard warned. "You're the majority shareholder. If you pull out, they'll need to find replacement capital fast or face serious operational problems." "I understand. May I ask why?" "Personal reasons." Richard sighed. "All right. I'll notify their legal team this morning. How do you want to structure the exit?" "Clean and complete. I want all my capital back plus standard returns. Offer them 30 days to buy me out or find replacement investors. If they can't, we liquidate according to the shareholder agreement." "That's going to hurt them badly." "Yes," I said. "It is." The call came to Derek at 10:47 a.m. I know because he called me at 10:52 a.m., his voice panicked in a way I'd never heard before. Emma, something's happening. Something bad." I was at the warehouse genuinely working a shift. I stepped outside to take the call. "What's wrong?" "My investor. The major one. SV Capital. They're pulling out. All of it. Everything." His voice cracked. "Emma, they're pulling $4.7 million. We don't have that kind of cash. We can't replace that capital in 30 days. The company's going to collapse." "I'm sorry, Derek. That sounds terrible." "Terrible? It's a disaster. 4 years of work gone. Everything I've built." He was nearly shouting now. "Why would they do this? We're performing exactly as projected. Better even. Maybe they needed the capital for other investments?" They didn't give a reason. Just a cold legal notice saying they're exercising their exit rights. 30 days to buy them out or they liquidate the company. I let the silence hang for a moment. "Can you find other investors?" "In 30 days? Are you insane? Series C was supposed to happen next year. We're not ready for that kind of pitch. And now we look desperate. Who wants to invest in a company whose major backer just fled?" "What about your Series B investors?" "They put in minority stakes." "Emma, you don't understand business. The majority shareholder pulling out signals catastrophic loss of confidence. Every other investor is going to run for the exits too. We're dead in the water." Another pause. "Then, can I borrow some money?" I almost laughed. "Derek, I work in a warehouse. Remember? I can't even afford coffee." "Right. Gut. Of course. Sorry. I'm freaking out here." "Have you told Mom and Dad?" "Not yet. I can't. After everything I said about being successful, about being better than, about my accomplishments. How do I tell them I'm about to lose everything?" "That's tough," I said, my voice neutral. "I have to go. Legal team is calling." "Emma, I'm sorry about dinner. About what I said. I was being a jerk." "It's fine." "No, it's not. I've been thinking about it all weekend. You didn't deserve that. I was showing off and you were an easy target. That was wrong. I appreciate you saying that. I'll make it up to you when this is over. If I survive this. He hung up. I stood outside the warehouse for a few minutes watching trucks back into loading bays. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Did you hear about Derek's company? Then Mom. Emma, sweetie, call me when you can. It's about your brother. Then Jessica. Emma, we need to talk, family emergency. I silenced my phone and went back to work. By Wednesday, the news had spread through the family. Derek's miracle company was imploding. The other investors were spooked, just as I'd predicted. 2 of them had already filed notices to exit their positions. Derek's legal team was scrambling to restructure, but without the majority shareholders' capital, there was no restructuring. There was only collapse. Mom called a family dinner for Thursday. Not at a fancy restaurant this time. At her house. Emergency meeting. Derek looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 days. His eyes were hollow, his skin gray. Jessica sat next to him holding his hand, looking worried. Okay, Dad said once everyone was assembled. Derek, tell us where things stand. Derek cleared his throat. The company's going under. We have 2 weeks left before bankruptcy proceedings start. I'm going to lose everything. The house is mortgaged against my shares. Jessica's car lease was backed by company profits. We're going to lose it all. Mom gasped. There must be something we can do. There isn't, Derek said flatly. Our major investor pulled out. 60% of the company. $4.7 million. When that happened, everyone else panicked. The dominoes are falling. Who was this investor? Uncle Richard asked. Can you negotiate with them? It's a shell company. SV Capital Holdings. I don't even know who the real person behind it is. My lawyers say they're fully within their rights to exit. The shareholder agreement is ironclad. Dad frowned. Why would they pull out if the company was doing well? I don't know. Derek's voice rose. Nobody knows. That's what makes this so insane. We hit every benchmark. Every projection. The product works. Customers love it. And then out of nowhere our angel investor just walks away. Sarah looked at me. Emma, didn't you study some business stuff in community college? A little, I said. Do you understand what Derek's talking about? I nodded slowly. An angel investor is someone who provides early capital for startups, usually in exchange for equity. If they own a majority stake and pull out, it signals serious problems to other investors. It creates a cascade effect. Derek looked at me with something like surprise. Yeah. Exactly that. But why would they invest in the first place if they didn't believe in the company? Mom asked. Maybe they believed in it 4 years ago, I said. Things change. Priorities shift. Maybe they needed liquidity for other investments. Derek stared at his hands. 4 years. 4 years of 18-hour days. Building something from nothing. And it's all gone because one person changed their mind. What about your friends? Jessica asked quietly. Your co-founders? They're looking for jobs. Smart move, honestly. At least they can say they were part of a startup. I'm the zoo. This failure is on me. The room fell silent. The golden child, the family success story, reduced to this. Part of me felt satisfaction. The larger part felt something more complicated. Uncle Richard spoke up. How much would you need to save the company? $5 million minimum, Derek said. To buy out the exiting shareholder and stabilize operations. But nobody's going to invest that in a company that's actively collapsing. We'd need an angel investor, and those don't just appear when you're desperate. What if we pooled family resources? Sarah suggested. Derek laughed bitterly. What resources? Dad's retired. Mom's on a fixed income. Richard, you've got your own business. Sarah, you're still paying off student loans. And Emma. He looked at me. Emma works in a warehouse. I'm sorry I can't help, I said softly. It's not your fault, Derek said, and he actually sounded like he meant it. You're probably the only one here who never pretended to be something they weren't. At least you're honest about your situation. Mom started crying. Dad put his arm around her. Jessica stared at the table. Sarah checked her phone nervously. I stood up. I need to make a phone call. Excuse me. I went out to the back porch and called Richard Chin. Emma. The 30 days, I said. Can we compress it? Offer him a buyback option at a reduced valuation. You want to help him? I want to make this clean. What would be fair? Richard thought for a moment. Given current distress, We could offer him a buyback at $3.2 million. That's below your total investment but gives him a chance to save the company if he can find bridge financing. Do it. Send the offer tonight. You're sure? Yes. But Richard, I want one condition. He has to know who the investor was. No more shell companies. Full disclosure. That's going to be quite a revelation. That's the point. The email arrived at Derek's phone at 8:47 p.m., while we were still sitting in Mom's living room in uncomfortable silence. I watched Derek's face as he read it. Confusion first. Then disbelief. Then he looked up at me. Emma. Everyone turned. SV Capital Holdings, Derek said slowly, his voice strange. The angel investor who's been funding my company for 4 years. The majority shareholder. The person who just offered me a buyback option at $3.2 million to save the company. He paused. It's you. The room exploded. What? That's impossible. Emma works in a warehouse. Derek stood up, holding his phone like it might bite him. The email came from Sterling Ventures, my investment firm. It says the beneficial owner of SV Capital Holdings is Emma Rodriguez. My sister. Emma. Dad looked at me. This is a mistake. It's not, I said quietly. Mom's mouth opened and closed. But, you don't have money. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive a 15-year-old Honda. I do live in a tiny apartment, I confirmed. And I do drive an old car. But I also have a diversified investment portfolio worth about $80 million. Derek's company represents about $46 million of that on paper. The silence was absolute. Sarah found her voice first. $80 million? Give or take, I said. It fluctuates with market conditions. Derek sank back into his chair. You've been my angel investor this whole time. Since the beginning. You put in $800,000 when I was desperate. You funded Series A and Series B through your partnerships. You own 60% of my company. Yes. Why? Because your idea was good, I said simply. Your execution was solid. The market timing was right. It was a smart investment. But you let me think. Everyone think. Derek gestured helplessly. We've been treating you like you're poor. Like you're a failure. I know. Why didn't you say something? Would you have taken investment money from your warehouse worker, sister? I asked. Or would you have been too proud? Derek closed his eyes. He knew the answer. Uncle Richard was staring at me like I was a stranger. How did you get $80 million? Grandma left me $200,000 when I was 22, I explained. Everyone thought it was a small inheritance. It was actually quite substantial. I invested conservatively at first. Index funds, blue chips, some real estate. Then I started taking calculated risks on startups and growth stocks. Compounding returns over 10 years. I also worked 4 jobs for the first 5 years, lived on almost nothing and invested everything extra. The warehouse job is part-time, mainly for the health insurance and the cover. The cover? Mom asked weakly. So people wouldn't ask me for money, I said. So I could invest based on merit, not family obligations. So I could live my life without everyone having opinions about how I should spend my wealth. Jessica spoke up, her voice small. At dinner. On Sunday. We mocked you for not being able to afford coffee. You did, I agreed. And all along you owned most of Derek's company. I did. Derek's head was in his hands. Oh God. Everything I said. Every insult. Every condescending comment. He looked up at me, his eyes red. Why did you pull out? To punish me. To wake you up, I said. Derek, you're talented. Your company is good. But you've spent 4 years treating people, like they're beneath you because they don't match your definition of success. You needed to understand that success isn't always visible. That wealth doesn't always advertise itself. That the person you're mocking might be the person keeping you afloat. So this was a lesson? Derek's voice had an edge now. No. It was a business decision. You became a liability. Not the company. Your ego. Your cruelty. I don't invest in people who treat others that way, family or not. Dad stood up suddenly. Now wait just a minute. You deliberately let your brother's company fail to teach him a lesson? That's vindictive. I gave him 30 days to find alternative funding, I said calmly. That's standard in the industry. And I just offered him a buyback option at $3.2 million, which is a gift considering the circumstances. He can still save the company. But he has to do it knowing the truth. What truth? Mom asked. That I'm not the failure in this family. I'm the most successful person here. And I did it without humiliating anyone. Without putting anyone down. Without making family dinners into performances of superiority. Derek was crying now. Not dramatically. Just quiet tears running down his face. You're right. You're absolutely right. I've been a complete asshole. Yes, I said. You have. The buyback option, Derek said, wiping his eyes. The $3.2 million. I don't have that. The bank won't loan it to me in my current situation. I know, I said. But I also know you have friends in the industry. Co-founders with connections. If your company is really as good as you claim, you should be able to find bridge financing in 30 days. Especially now that potential investors know the majority shareholder is willing to exit at a discount. And if I can't? Then the company liquidates. But Derek, if you do save it, if you find the funding and buy me out, I want you to remember something. Remember this feeling. Remember what it's like to be underestimated. To be dismissed. To be treated like you're worthless. And never do it to anyone else again. Sarah cleared her throat. Emma, I'm sorry. We've all been terrible to you. Yes, I said. You have. Mom was crying now too. We thought we were helping. Pushing you to do better. You were pushing me to match your definition of better, I corrected. I've been doing better. You just refused to see it. Uncle Richard shook his head slowly. $80 million. And we treated you like the family charity case. Like I said, that was by design. I didn't want this. I gestured around the room. This drama. This attention. I wanted to invest quietly, live simply, and build wealth without performance or pretense. But Derek forced my hand. Derek nodded slowly. What do I do now? You have 30 days, I said. Make them count. Find investors. Pitch your company like your life depends on it, because it does. Show them the fundamentals are sound. Show them one investor exiting doesn't mean the company's worthless. And Derek? Be humble. That's something you've never been good at. Will you help me? He asked quietly. Not with money, but with advice. You obviously understand this world better than I thought. I considered that. Maybe. If you actually change. If you stop treating people like they're beneath you. If you recognize that success comes in many forms and wealth isn't always visible. I will. I promise. Don't promise me, I said. Promise yourself. And promise everyone else you've looked down on over the years. I picked up my bag. I'm going home now. Derek, my investment manager's contact information is in that email. He can answer your questions about the buyback structure. The rest of you, I think we all need some space to process this. Emma, wait, Mom called as I headed for the door. Can we talk? Just us. Not tonight, Mom. I'm tired. And honestly, I need time away from all of you. But we're family, she protested. Family doesn't humiliate each other for entertainment, I said. When you're ready to treat me like family instead of a punchline, call me. Until then, I need distance. I walked out into the cool evening air. My phone was already buzzing with texts. I silenced it and drove home to my tiny apartment with my 15-year-old Honda. Derek saved his company. It took him 28 of the 30 days, but he found a consortium of investors willing to provide bridge financing. They bought out my position at the discounted rate, and Derek maintained control with a reduced stake. The company survived. He called me afterward, his voice exhausted but grateful. We're going to make it. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it. Emma, I wanted to say everything I said to you over the years. Not just at that dinner. Everything. I'm sorry. Really, genuinely sorry. Okay. Is that it? Just okay. Derek, I accepted your apology. But it's going to take time before we're close again. You don't erase years of behavior with one sorry. I understand. But I want to try. I want to be better. Then be better, I said. Show me with actions, not words. And slowly over months he did. The condescension disappeared. The performance stopped. When we gathered for family dinners, at normal restaurants now, Derek was quieter, more thoughtful, more aware of how he spoke to people. The family dynamics shifted too. Mom and Dad stopped treating me like I needed saving. Sarah started asking me for investment advice. Uncle Richard apologized for every dismissive comment he'd ever made. But the biggest change was in how I felt about myself. For years I'd hidden my success to avoid this exact situation. But forcing it into the open on my terms had been liberating. I didn't have to pretend anymore. I could be exactly who I was, Successful, generous, strategic, and unbothered by other people's definitions of worth. A year later, Derek's company went public. Modest IPO but successful. His reduced stake still made him wealthy. At the celebration dinner, he raised a glass to me. "To Emma," he said. "The smartest investor I know. And the sister I should have appreciated from the beginning." Everyone drank to that. I smiled, took a sip of my $8 coffee, and thought about the warehouse shift I had scheduled for tomorrow. Not because I needed the money, but because I liked the simplicity of it. The honest work. The lack of pretense. Success looks different for everyone. Took my family years to learn that lesson. But they learned it.